Hey YouTube, welcome to an awesome new episode of Comics and Stuff. My name is Devin and I am your host. If you are a new subscriber, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. If you looked at today's title of the video, it is So You Want to Read Comic Books, an easy guide for noobs. So with that being said, here's my disclaimer. This video is not for your average comic book reader, your avid comic book reader, your crazy comic book reader. This is for people who have never really ever forayed into comic books, who have only just recently found an interest in reading comic books, or one who has never even picked up or looked at a comic book at all. So this would be like people who have been swept up into the world of comic books by the recent movies, or people who have seen their friends reading it and they're really curious but don't know where to start. This video is for you guys, the people who are brand new to the whole industry, brand new to all the stories, or if you just want to see kind of get a taste of it, take a sample but don't take the whole kitchen, you know what I'm saying? So this is for you guys. If you are an avid comic book reader but you want to stick by and listen and look at my recommendations, you're more than welcome to. I should let you know that these recommendations are all based off of my own opinion from the books that I've read, so they might not match yours, but that's okay. These are all still great series to read. I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like 10 different genres I want to recommend to you guys to start. Just to get you guys like a broad scale, I'm going to give you a ton of recommendations. These are all great places to start. So let's just kind of jump right into it. So the first genre that I want to talk about would be just like the general broad like superhero genre. That's like the first thing that comes to mind when people think of comic books. They think of Superman or Captain America, Marvel, DC, blah blah blah, because of all the movies and things like that. So for those, I would recommend, if you want to just kind of get a broad sense of what superhero comics are, figure out who your favorite superhero is, I would say start with the general. For the DC side, start with the general Justice League series. There's like Justice League Dark, Justice League United, etc. Just start with the general Justice League title, and then for the Marvel side, start with the Avengers, or start with the Avengers. There's also like Uncanny Avengers or Ultimate Avengers, but just start with the general Avengers title, and that goes for both of them. They're both really good. They both can kind of give you an idea of what area you want to start going into if you want to delve into a certain character or whatnot. Those would be where I would recommend to start for superhero comics. Next genre would be sci-fi. So sci-fi, I have 4 recommendations for you. The first one being probably my favorite comic book of all time, Saga, which is from Image Comics by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. It is an awesome sci-fi series to start with. If that's not quite your taste, you can go the Marvel route and look at Guardians of the Galaxy, or you can go the DC route and look at Green Lantern. You can also go the IDW route and look at Star Trek, or just look at Star Wars comics. I haven't really read many of the Star Trek comics. They were all right. I liked them, but I'm a huge fan of the Star Wars comics. Now, Star Wars, there's a million different titles. There's 2 whole universes. These books have been going on for 20 plus years. I personally recommend starting with Marvel stuff just because it's a new canon. If you want to get into Star Wars Legends, that I would say wait until you're a little more well acquainted with the universe. So with that, you can pick up the general Star Wars title, or I really like the Darth Vader title myself. But I digress. So moving on, let's go to the paranormal genre. So the weird, the strange, monsters and demons and blah blah blah. So that would be number one thing that I would recommend for that would be Hellboy from Dark Horse Comics. Hellboy is about as old as I am, and it is an amazing book. They're still coming out with books. You can find the official reading order at magnoliauniversity.com. I'll put a link to that in the description below. But yeah, Hellboy is awesome for anybody who's into that sort of stuff. Hellboy, he's a paranormal investigator of sorts. Going on from that, the runner-up would be Doctor Strange from Marvel Comics, who is one of my all-time favorite superheroes. He deals with the weird, and I would recommend starting with the most recent incarnation of Doctor Strange from Marvel Comics. I believe the story arc is called Last Days of Magic. That's probably where I would say to start. It's really good. Absolutely. Next would be Justice League Dark that I would recommend with paranormal. So Justice League Dark kind of focuses on characters like Deadman, Zatanna, John Constantine, Swamp Thing, all the paranormal characters from the DC universe kind of grouped together. So that's a great spot to start. Or you can actually just read the new Hellblazer title from DC Comics as well. It focuses on John Constantine and just like the weird in general, or you can read the original Hellblazer title, which is really good. Hellblazer number 27 from the original Hellblazer series is considered one of the greatest short comic stories ever written by Neil Gaiman. Anyhow, moving on. So I will now move from sci-fi and paranormal. We'll kind of jump on over to fantasy. So fantasy, kind of like elves and fairy tales, things like that. So number one I would recommend would be ElfQuest. I personally think ElfQuest is kind of corny. That's just me. It's not everybody. It was very popular for a very long time, and the series even got revived, and for good reason. People really enjoyed it. If that's not your taste, you can look at Fables from, I believe that's from Vertigo, which is like a DC imprint. But Fables is kind of like about all the different fairy tales and things like that. And it's supposed to be really good. So there's that. Or moving on from fantasy just really quickly, not moving on from fantasy, but moving away from DC really quickly, you can look at Xenoscope Comics. So Xenoscope Comics, they have a broad, extremely broad library of just fantasy-esque comics. They kind of mix like classic fairy tales with like sex. So like they have the Little Mermaid, or they have Peter Pan. The Peter Pan one, I can't remember. I think it's just called Neverland. It's so good. I would tell you immediately if you were to ask me to read it, if you wanted to read a good fantasy book. Anyways, going back to DC, I would also recommend reading the original Warlord series by Mike Grell from the 1970s. You can buy a collected edition of it on Amazon for like $40. Has most of the series in it, but it is so good. Perfect amount of fantasy and like magic and just the weird in general. So I really liked Warlord. I don't think the Warlord has had any of his own comic series since, but the original one is really good, so pick that up. So what have we covered? Superhero, sci-fi, paranormal, and fantasy. So let's move to Slice of Life. So for those of you who don't know, Slice of Life is kind of just like people doing their everyday thing, following their day-to-day routine, and just like the social dynamics that go into life. So for Slice of Life, the very first thing I put is Archie, the new Archie comics written by Mark Waid and Fiona Staples. Fiona Staples did the art. It is amazing. It is so well done, so well written, really good character development. But you can also read other Archie comics. Archie's been going around since the 1940s, so there's dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of different Archie titles you can pick from. But the new one I would totally recommend. It's so good. I believe it's just being done by Archie Comics. But it's an awesome read. Next would be Lucky Penny. So Lucky Penny is an indie comic. You can actually Google Lucky Penny comic, and it should pop up. It should be like one of the first things that comes up. But it's a kind of like a slice of life about a girl. It's really good. I just don't want to give too many spoilers or get into one individual comic, so look it up. And then finally for Slice of Life, I would say Finn and Charlie Are Hitched. It's about two gay guys, just kind of like their life, their social dynamics, and the comic book has since evolved into something called Muddler's Beat, which is about like one of their nieces or something. You can find all that at hitchedcomic.com, and then there's a link to go over to the new website. But anyways, it's really good. It's written by a guy named Tony Breed. He's a fantastic fellow. Anyhow, moving on to, let's kind of cover like dystopias or the future, apocalyptic futures or whatever. First and foremost, I would like to recommend East of West by Jonathan Hickman, who's one of my favorite writers of all time. East of West is this awesome dystopic future about, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and it's pretty bloody, pretty gory, really great character development, really good, just like a really good storyline in general. I really like it. And if that's not quite your taste, I would recommend Earth 2 by DC Comics. So Earth 2 takes all of their superheroes from the golden age of comic books, which was an entirely different video, to be honest. But I mean, like, so this is the Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, all that from the 1930s, and they just kind of put them on a separate Earth, and it kind of follows their stories as opposed to the mainstream Batman and Superman and stuff like that we know already. So that would be one awesome series I would recommend. It goes, Earth 2 to Earth 2 World's End to Earth 2 Society, so it gets worse and worse as you go, but it's a great story. But I mean, like, their situation gets really bad. Anyways. More futuristic, I would say Descender or Why the Last Man. So Descender is written by Dustin Wen and Jeff Lemire, I believe, writer-artist team. and it's from Image Comics, and it has gotten critical acclaim. It's getting a movie. It's really cool. It's about robots in the future who have achieved sentience or something like that. And then Why the Last Man, I haven't actually read a whole lot of it. I've read bits and pieces, but I just hear people rave about it all the time. And from the first volume that I read, I really enjoyed it. I just haven't dove into it because I'm reading so many other things, but I really liked the first volume that I read. So I would say hop into Why the Last Man. If you can, if you can finish the whole story before I do, please tell me how you like the ending, because I have no idea what it is or how far it's gone. But it's really cool. So cool concept. Moving on, let's kind of talk about crime comics. So crime, kind of, it could be really anything, just as long as there's somebody committing a crime and then somebody solving the crime. So first one I'd like to recommend would be Thief of Thieves. I've been reading it for a little while now. I picked it up, and it's actually really good. I really like it. It's actually slated to get its own like TNT TV show, but it's really good, from Image Comics. And then the next one would be Sex Criminals. Now, Sex Criminals has gotten like high critical acclaim. Like, people are just talking about how crazy awesome it is. It's about two people who, every time they have sex, time stops and they go commit crimes, and you can kind of see where it goes from there. And then my personal favorite would be Chew from Image Comics. So Chew is about, it's kind of like, it's actually kind of a mix between future and crime. So it's about Tony Chew. He is an FDA agent, a Food and Drug Administration agent, and in the future they're like the highest form of government authority because of crazy virus outbreak from chickens, and chicken is illegal, and he solves food-based crimes, and it's kind of hilarious. So that's really cool. Moving on, we'll talk about adventure comics. So these are quests and things like that. So first one I recommend is Tintin. And if you don't know who Tintin is, come on, man, Google it, read it. Tintin is classic adventure comics. It was created by a French guy. I cannot think of his name off the top of my head for the life of me. But Tintin is your go-to adventure comic for just great old school storytelling. Granted, there's a little racism in there, but anyways. And then Mouse Guard, which is really good. It's from Archaea Comics, and it started out as like an indie comic, but it's about mice, and they go on adventures and they quest and things like that, which is really cool. And then my last recommendation for adventure comics would be Squarriors. So Squarriors are from Devil's Due Entertainment, and it's it's after the humans are gone. It's in the future. Humans are dead, and the animals have all achieved like super intelligence, and they are now warring. They have tribes, and they war with each other, and it's really cool. Almost done, you guys. Thanks for sticking with me for so long. So the last two subjects. So one is retro. So retro, when I say retro, I mean like if you are really into following old school comics from the 1950s, 60s, 70s, you can actually find collected editions of these from Marvel and DC. So if you want to read old school Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman from DC, they have two different types of collected edition books. So one would be the DC Archive series, where they're a little shorter. They're about this thick each, and they're full color reprint stories from all the classic comic books. And then if you want a larger amount, so the next one would be called Showcase. Showcase Presents. So those books are about this thick, so they're a little larger, but they're not in color, and the paper is a little less, I guess, not as good of quality as the archives. But those are the two collected editions. You can find literally everything. I think there's like over 200 of them altogether, archives and showcased. And then same thing goes for Marvel. So Marvel, they have the Masterworks collection and then the Epic collection. So Masterworks collection are the shorter ones that have the full color reprints, and then the Epic collection are the larger ones that don't have color, and they're a little cheaper quality, but it's more story. So you can pick those up if you want to read about your favorite superhero from back in the 60s. Really cool. And then the last genre I will talk about isn't really a genre, it's more just adaptions. So adaptions, like if you ever see a movie or a TV show or anything like that, and you say, well, I wish they would have a comic book of that. Well, you have IDW Comics and Boom Studios. So Boom Studios, they do more like TV show adaptions. So if you like things like Steven Universe or Power Rangers, Boom Studios. If you want like movies like Godzilla or, oh god, I'm blanking. Godzilla, G.I. Joe, things like that, that would be IDW. I believe they also have like a Hellraiser and Edward Scissorhands comics. They have everything. Just look up their websites. And then last but not least, just like honorable mentions, One honorable mention that I would like to make would be Howard the Duck, just because he's a silly character. He's humorous, he's funny, and I just really enjoy him. His older comic books are kind of funny as well, but the newer ones have like some good punchlines. Hey guys, sorry about that. My camera wigged out on me again because I may have or may have not charged the battery. Anyways, though, so what was I saying? I guess for honorable mentions for recommendations. Howard the Duck, the new Howard the Duck series from Marvel is very silly. And then number 2 would be the James Bond series from Dynamite Entertainment. I really like the James Bond series. He's never had like his own full-on comic series until now, and it's really good, so totally read it if you can. But that's really it for this video, guys. I really hope that this helps you viewers if you're a newcomer. I really hope that this helps you find a series that you're into, a series that you want to read, or helps you help a friend find something that they might enjoy. These are all really great series. I've read all of them except for like maybe 2 of them I've only read little bits of. But as far as I know, everything on here is top-notch. I really enjoy them. I hope you do too. If you enjoyed this video and like this video a lot, whatever, if you guys like this video and want to see more like this, just hit the subscribe button. It's going to show up right below me. If you have any questions about any of these things, please comment below. And then as for my website, I haven't figured out what to do with it yet, so please bear with me on that. I'm trying my best here, but that's it, guys. So if I don't think I have anything else, so I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. We've got Bumper Shoot and PAX going on here in Seattle, so I'm going to see if I can hit those up, and I will see you all Monday.